Hey, alumni fans, it's another alumni coffee break, so it must be a Tuesday. Troy, the alumni guy here, and it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris Bies, maybe a familiar face to you around North Hennepin. He was a TRIO student. He was involved in student life on the finance committee, in the entrepreneurial club. He reminded me of that one. And then also the student volunteer club. And we're going to do a couple of parts on this, but I want to just welcome Chris to the alumni coffee break stage.
Hey, thanks, Troy. Great to be here.
Awesome. And just so that our group knows, Chris, as you know, I gave you some coaching questions just to get the conversation started. And one kind of tickled your funny bone. And the question was, and actually I have to credit my son Alex on this one. He does some interviews too. And this is actually where that question came from. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? And you had an interesting comment to that.
Well, yeah. My 18-year-old self was actually 44 years old when I started college, and I never had any plans of going to college. And life happened, and I ended up starting college at 44. I had gone to technical college right out of high school. But at 44, I found myself with the opportunity to go to college, and it was an amazing experience. And primarily, a lot of that was because of NHCC. And what I would tell myself now, my 44-year-old self is, that I could do this, because when I started, I was terrified and I didn't think I could do college. And ended up with a 4.0 my first semester, which I was just floored. I couldn't believe it. So NHCC, just amazing place.
Absolutely. And, I was so excited, Chris, to have you on the show today that I didn't do our traditional, I salute you, with our official NHCC coffee break cup. So my salutes to you, my friend, and awesome. I was so, your star power is so much. I forgot the coffee cup, the most important part of our brand.
Quite okay. You slipped it in.
Yeah,
I got things up a little bit.
And I am so proud of you. I got to see you in your career, and we met in Jerry Hurt's class.
Right. Yep.
Which will be a fun story probably for another coffee break, because you've already said, gosh, let's keep these going. And this is going to kind of be the slant for our alumni audience, in that you took your degree to some pretty cool epic levels in an entrepreneurial direction. And I am wowed every day by all of the things that you do. I'm going to just tease that and not get into the laundry list, because it's pretty substantial, my friends, what Chris has decided to do with his career. This guy is busy all of the time, and he's got his hands in so many things. And one thing that he mentioned here that I'll promote is, you call yourself a lifelong learner, and you truly personify that. I mean, you started in this career, and you were in the press printing industry for 24 years. The industry got downsized, as you shared with me. Suddenly you were without a job. You had this opportunity to go and get an education. And just tell our audience a little bit about that narrative. I mean, that's a long career, 24 years.
It really was, and I had no plans of ever leaving. I liked the people I worked with. I liked the job, and one day, it was 2007, went in, they said, we have to lay you off. We don't have enough work, and I was devastated. And went to the workforce center, and they said, printing's dying, and here's money to go to school. And I had gotten the NHCC catalog for years with all the non-credit cool classes they had, and I wanted to do it, but I didn't really want to spend the money on it. And now I had some money to spend, so I took as many classes as I possibly could on the non-credit side. But then I started at NHCC in the college prep program, and Mary and Terry were so influential and so helpful. And they said, I didn't know what I was going to do. And they said, why don't you go to school here? So I signed up and I started taking classes at NHCC, which was phenomenal. But at first I was terrified. I was scared to death of school. Yeah. And being 44 years old too, I was older than most of the instructors. But I got along with everybody. I got along well with the younger people, and there weren't that many people older than I was, but there was a few, but it got along great. It was awesome. It was a great experience.
Yeah, and one of the directions you took it is book writing, and you shared with me off camera. You never saw yourself as a writer.
Oh
North
no.
Hennepin inspired you, and you're writing 6 books right now.
Working
Tell
on
us, tell us.
yeah, and that kind of started in college prep too, where I was working on writing things. And Graham and I have never gotten along, and I never was a very good writer and didn't ever do much of it. But then I think Terry had me write something down, and she's like, "This is great. Can I share it with my dad?" And oh, sure. And then had to write millions of papers, not millions, but a lot of papers for college.
Yeah,
And it's like, I kind of enjoy this, but I've had stories that my parents have told over the years. And one day I went to a park, and there's a pond there, and there was two trumpeter swans there. And I'd seen trumpeter swans different places, but really didn't know much about them, and took some pictures. And that's another thing. I take so many pictures. I love photography. And left, and 2 weeks later I thought, oh, I'll see if they're still there, and they were. And the two had turned into 10. They had 8 little cygnets,
no,
cutest little pure white when they're born. They're all down feathers. And ended up following that same, or photographing that same nesting pair for 3 years. And there, I think it was 21 little kids. They had different amounts each year, but it was fascinating. And I did more research on trumpeter swans, and they were thought to be extinct in 1930. And then they found different flocks in different areas, and there was only something like 200 trumpeter swans left in the world. And I think today there must be something like 40,000. They made an incredible comeback.
wow,
So, but no, the writing, it's really a lot of fun. And it would have never happened if it wasn't for NHCC. I mean, I've always loved reading books and love a well-written book, but I never dreamed that I would write my own books.
wow, wow. Yeah, and you and gosh, this 5 minutes, Chris, has gone way too
Yep,
fast, as it
yep.
always does. You and I are going to do a part two for sure, and maybe even beyond that. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Truly, audience, one of the most interesting, knowledgeable guys I have ever met. Always a pleasure to talk with you, Chris. And part two coming up, my friend.
Great. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate it.